Yesterday I did Persian vs Primeape, and a Pokemon I always considered comparing to those two was Raichu. So let's talk about how it does in a solo run of Pokemon Yellow today. This feels like wonderful wish fulfillment for me because as a kid I always wanted to use a Thunderstone on my Pikachu, but of course you can't do that because the Pikachu you're given as a starter is basically useless. Well, not completely, because it does have some cute animations throughout the game, like in Bill's house or the Fan Club in Vermilion City. Also, it just sounds so sad when you deposit it into the PC. So I always ended up just keeping it in my party as deadweight. I have all these nostalgic memories with Pikachu, and I have literally zero with Raichu. I have never once used this thing on one of my teams in a playthrough of a Pokemon game, and I have also just recently done my first solo run with it in Pokemon Fire Red. In that game, Raichu did not perform very well, and Pokemon Yellow tends to punish electric types, so I am not expecting greatness today. For base stats, Raichu has 60 HP, 90 attack, 55 defense, 90 special, and 100 speed. This gives it a 19.53% chance to crit. It's great that it is a balanced attacker because it gets virtually no coverage for ground type Pokemon. Hitting harder with normal moves is essentially my only solution. It has a medium fast growth rate. Pikachu is often compared to the starter Pokemon, and this is one major difference between them. Alright, so are you ready for the pain? Let's look at Raichu's move pool. It starts with Thundershock, Growl, and Thunder Wave, and it learns no new moves through level up because it is a stone evolution. Do you all see the position that puts me in? I have no moves that can deal damage to Brock's Pokemon. I'm also not going to learn any moves that can deal damage to Brock's Pokemon, and there are no TMs in the early game before you defeat him. As a result, Raichu is going to have to beat Brock using Struggle. At least once it clears him, it starts getting access to some good moves. Mega Punch in Mount Moon, then Body Slam on the SSN. It could learn Double Edge if it needs a little bit more damage against a ground type like Sand Slash. It also has Submission, which can be very useful against rock types that are paired with the ground type. Of course, it gets Thunderbolt and Thunder, and then it gets a bunch of standard fare like Mimic, Reflect, Bide, Swift, and Rest. So I need to prepare for Brock, and to do this, I want to gain as much trainer boosted experience as is possible. So I'm going to face the rival on Route 22. After all, he leads with a Spearow, and this is usually the Pokemon I am most worried about because it has Peck. In the early game, this is one of a few damage dealing moves that aren't normal type. But of course the electric type resists flying type moves, so I'm not worried. And this fight is very easy, even starting at level 7. In the forest, I'm going to fight every single optional trainer, the Lass, and all 4 bug catchers. Doing this brings Raichu up to level 12. This is definitely not going to be a high enough level to defeat Brock, so I'm going to go back to the forest and continue training against wild Pokemon. While I do that, I'll mention the fact that I cannot defeat the junior trainer in Brock's gym unless I'm using Struggle, because both of his Pokemon are ground types. Plus the Diglett gets a bunch of critical hits, and I don't want to fight it too early if I'm not sure that I'm going to win. A silver lining here is the fact that Raichu's Thundershock is doing a lot of damage, so I'm one-hitting every wild Pokemon that I encounter. Partway through level 14, I run out of PP, and then I find myself a Metapod to spam out both Thunder Wave and Growl. Unlike later generations of Pokemon, the enemy do not have PP, so this Metapod is never going to use Struggle. As a result, it's just going to spam Harden. I'll eventually deplete all of my moves and be able to face the junior trainer. Defeating him, which is surprisingly close, gives Raichu enough experience to level up to 15. This is over a damage rounding threshold, so I figured maybe I would attempt Brock and see if this might be possible at level 15, because if it is, there is some hope for Raichu getting a decent finish time. His first Pokemon is Geodude. It has higher attack than the Onix, so its tackles do a lot of damage, plus it does not have the move Defense Curl, which is sort of a double-edged sword because it would be nice if it wouldn't attack Raichu, but setting up defense would mean that Struggle would do less damage every turn, and I really don't want that to be the case. It is already doing very little. This is because it deals normal type damage in Generation 1. What I'm really hoping for here is a critical hit to speed up my progress. On the 4th turn, I get one, taking Geodude down to red, and I finish it off with a 5th hit. Alright, so things are not looking very good. I have less than half health for the Onix. I guess it could just miss Tackle, spam Screech, miss with Bind, and never use Bide, but of course it's not going to do that. It traps me in a bind right away, dealing some damage, and then it goes for Bide, which I have to attack into. I get a critical hit right away, so it accumulates a lot of damage, and when it unleashes energy, Raichu faints. I wasn't even able to get it under green health, so I'm definitely going back to the forest and continuing my training. This starts at roughly 10 minutes, and the training is going to take a while because I'm going to attempt to level Raichu up to level 18, the next damage rounding threshold. The thing is, this is not actually the easiest task to accomplish. Every time I heal, I get 30 uses of Thunder Shock, and I have to deplete all of my PP if I want to face Brock. What that means is if I'm about to level up from 17 to 18 and I have to heal, then I have a lot more Thunder Shocks that I need to spam out, which means I have to take more time in Viridian Forest depleting the move. As a result, I'm not going to quite make it to 18 by the time I'm going to face Brock again. I will have enough experience to level up after I defeat the Geodude though, so that's a plus. During the time training, which has roughly been 5 minutes, I thought of a small way to optimize my fight against the Geodude. If I keep one use of Growl, I can use this on the first turn, so the Geodude does way less damage with each one of its tackles. It looks like in this case they are doing somewhere between 2 and 3 damage per turn. Following that, I start using Struggle, and in this case, without a crit, it takes 5 turns to knock the Geodude out. Raichu levels up to 18, and I have 36 hit points left for the Onix. That is 16 more than last time, which is promising. Struggle is doing a decent amount of damage. What I was really fearful here is a 3-turn bide hitting me right away. Luckily, Onix does not go for it, but it does get a bind in, chipping away at Raichu, taking it down to 18 hit points. Alright, now that I have him at low health, it would be really good if he went for a bide, and he does, allowing me to get 2 more hits in with Struggle and finish Brock off. So the Electric-type mouse gets a first split of 16 minutes and 32 seconds. If I was to compare this with basically any other Brock split, this is one of the worst. It's similar to a Pokemon like Kadabra. I think it is a good mirror of Raichu because it has to use Struggle to level up to get Confusion for Brock, whereas Raichu has to use Thunder Shock to level up to use Struggle against Brock. Alright, so with that section of the game cleared, things are going to go much faster for Raichu. Having to level so extensively for Brock means everyone on Route 3 is very easy to beat. I still do a little bit of optional training in Mount Moon, I just don't want to be underleveled for ground types later on. I pick up the TM for Mega Punch as well as the Dome Fossil, defeat Jesse and James, and head into Cerulean City. It's obvious where I should go first. I am going to of course face Misty. Staryu's up first, Raichu is faster than both of her Pokemon, and Thunder Shock gets a crit, so I only have her Ace left to deal with. Against it, I do less than half with my first attack. Its Tackle does very little, Misty uses the next Defend, and so Raichu earns itself the second badge very easily. Now I fought Misty first just so I could have a little bit more experience for the rival on Nugget Bridge. While the Spearow is not a problem because I can one-shot with Thunder Shock, I really need to 2-hit the Sandshrew to avoid Sand Attack. Mega Punch takes it to red, Sand Attack misses, and I knock it out. From there things are simple, I one-shot the Rattata and 2-shot the Eevee. With Raichu on my team, the game does not gift me with a cute animation once I reach Bill's house. Left slightly disappointed, I head south to Vermilion City. Obviously, there's no problems with Sandy because I'm an electric type. On the SSN, I make sure that I pick up Rest. This will be very important later on. And it is going to work in combination with the next move I pick up, which is Body Slam. This should be my go-to normal type attack throughout the rest of the game, and it's really nice to have one that doesn't have a chance to miss. Because in the next rival battle, I'm going to be slightly more consistent against his Sandshrew. Of course, there are no problems here today, and with that, Raichu is ready for the mirror match. Let's take on Surge. Okay, so my Raichu is much better. If you check our stats, mine are all just higher. This is because my Pokemon has been gaining stat experience throughout the playthrough, whereas his Raichu has none. Body Slam does half, it uses Growl, which is annoying I guess. I take it to red health, Surge uses Thunderbolt, which is not a good choice, and I finish him off on the next turn. The prize for winning this battle is TM24, which is Thunderbolt. Here's a piece of Generation 1 trivia. No Pokemon can learn this move by level up, with the exception of Pikachu in Pokemon Yellow. I use the TM and teach it to Raichu in the place of Thunder Wave. The Wrapping Lass is next, but it looks like Body Slam is one-hitting all of her Pokemon, so Raichu doesn't have a problem here. Inside of Rock Tunnel, I have to face the Pokemaniac. Cubone could be a threat if it, say, got a critical hit and I went into this fight damaged, but Raichu 2 hits with Body Slam, and then the Slowpoke, in this case, is actually quick because I'm able to knock it out with one Thunderbolt. Okay, so I said Rest was very important, and that is because I need it for the self-destructing Hiker. Whenever one of his Pokemon blows up, I am going to heal my health and continue to the next Pokemon. By doing this, I am able to defeat him on my first attempt. As we watch the footage from the rest of Rock Tunnel, I do want to say that there's an alternate strategy here, which is to unlock Seismic Toss earlier in the game. I didn't go for that because I didn't want to backtrack all the way through Nugget Bridge after defeating Surge, and I also didn't want to defeat the Hiker when I was first headed towards Bill's house. That's because he has 3 Geodudes, all of them no defense curl, and usually your PP is quite low at that point in the route. Running out against the Geodude and then having a reset, blackout, or having to use Struggle would have wasted a lot of time. For Raichu, levels are going to be very important in the late game. I think my only option against the Sand Slash on the Champions team is going to be to use Body Slam. Recoil damage from Double Edge will mean that its Earthquakes will knock Raichu out faster, and I want the secondary effect to paralyze. Still, the Sand Slash has a lot of defense, so I need to make sure that Raichu reaches a very high final level. Therefore, going through the hideout and collecting 1 additional rare candy is a no-brainer. The money from this trip also synergizes by allowing me to buy more vitamins, and in this case, I'm going to buy irons, specifically in anticipation of the Sand Slash. If you're wondering if HP ups might be better, the answer in Generation 1 is almost always no. More defense means you'll take less damage from physical targets, and the reason I said this was Generation specific is because buying Calcium boosts both your special attack and special defense, so why would you boost your HP? I guess if you want more survivability against both physical attacks and special attacks. The only Pokemon I have found where I made that choice was Scyther. That's specifically because I wanted more HP to survive the Chandler in Pokemon Tower. And with Raichu, that is where I'm going next. The rival is not a problem, although the Sandshrew is still surviving my hits. This is the last battle where it is unevolved. It's going to start getting more and more difficult from here on out. Agatha Jr. isn't a problem because Thunderbolt is able to one-shot her Ghastlies, so Pokemon Tower in general is not really a notable location for Raichu in any meaningful way. After defeating her, I do pick up the HP up. Generally, I skip this item, but again, anything I can do to improve my survivability in the final fight is going to be worth it. At the end of Pokemon Tower, I cross Jesse and James, and then I head to Cycling Road. Here, I fight 1 optional trainer, the guy with 5 Pokemon who has incredible experience yields. After that, I head through the Safari Zone, and then backtrack to Celadon City to take on Erica. There isn't really any strategy here, just spam Body Slam, hope I knock her Pokemon out quickly. Maybe a crit here and there would be nice. I get one on the Tangela, finishing it in 2 turns. Weepinbell is next. It could use Sleep Powder and really mess me up. It goes for Razor Leaf, critting, taking Raichu to just above half health. She sends in her Gloom next. Body Slam does half to it, Acid doesn't do very much to me, and so I've defeated the Grass-type specialist. With her out of the way, I head to Saffron City, and I'm now going to do a bunch of optional training to get levels under my belt. The first place I go is the Fighting Dojo, and then in Sylph, I defeat so many of the optional trainers here. By the time I'm heading to face the rival, my Raichu is almost level 42. It is worth noting, I have used no rare candies in this playthrough, and by the very end of the game, I'm going to have a total of 11 or 12. Sand Slash is the issue in this fight. How much damage is Body Slam going to do? And the answer is about a third. Sand Slash's Slash does the same amount. I take it to orange health, causing paralysis, but it still moves, luckily not poisoning me, and I finish it off. Ninetales is next, and its moveset is terrible, so I 2-shot with Thunderbolt, 1-shot the following Cloyster, as well as Kadabra, and move on to the Jolteon. Raichu is speed tied with it. I win, moving first with Body Slam, doing more than half. Jolteon just misses Pin Missile, and I finish it off. Okay, I was expecting that fight to be a little bit more difficult. Granted, there was some luck on my side. The Sand Slash didn't use multiple slashes, and it also didn't go for Sand Attack. I rarely talk about the Giovanni fight in Sylph, but in this case I made a critical misplay. I started the battle without healing Body Slam's PP, and with only 6 uses, I am not going to have enough to knock out the Rhyhorn as well as the Nidoqueen. That's my second to reset with Raichu, the first one being on Brock, so overall it's doing quite well. When I heal Body Slam's PP, I can come back, easily knock out the Rhyhorn, as well as the Nidoqueen, and take the victory. The Saffron City Gym is my next destination, where I fight 2 optional trainers, the Psychics that have the Slowpoke line. The gym leader Sabrina shouldn't be a problem because Raichu moves first against both the Abra and the Kadabra. I was surprised when I didn't one-hit, allowing Kadabra to use Psychic, doing almost half. Now, I am slower than the Alakazam. I'm specifically fighting her because I didn't want to waste time backtracking here later on. It goes for Psychic right away, taking Raichu to 7 hit points. I do more than half. Alakazam sets up Reflect, okay that's good. I take it to red health, Sabrina uses an X Defend, and my Body Slab knocks it out. That was really close. Koga's next. I expect this to be a simple fight. I can use Thunderbolt on the Venonats. I was expecting to one-hit all three of them, but the third one survives using Double Edge once before it goes down. Okay, time for his Ace Venomoth. Obviously this thing is a ground type. By the way, welcome new viewers. Thanks for checking out my channel. Thunderbolt is going to be a 3-hit. The Venomoth goes for Leech Life and then Toxic, and I knock it out. After defeating Koga, I always go to the Warden's house to pick up the rare candy here. After that, I'm going to surf to Cinnabar Island, and when I open my inventory here, you can see that I have a total of 8 rare candies. Inside of Pokemon Mansion, there are 2 more, this one over here, and then this hidden one over by the secret key. In order to have the maximum number of candies, which is 12, I'm going to go to the power plant to pick up 1 more. In the Cinnabar Island gym, I fight all of the trainers to gain more experience, and by the time Raichu is ready to face Blaine, it is almost level 49. Okay, so let's face the Fire-type specialist. He is probably the best gym leader in Yellow version. Let's see how this goes. Up first is Ninetales. It goes for Quick Attack, doing very little, and my Thunderbolt does just under half. If I get a better damage roll, I think I'll knock it out, and I do because of a critical hit. Rapidash is next. Because it has lower special when compared with Ninetales, I know that Thunderbolt is going to get the 2-hit here, and I move on to the Arcanine with just above half health. Right away, Thunderbolt gets a critical hit, taking it to low health. It just goes for Reflect, and by doing that, Blaine has thrown the fight. But now we have reached the time in the run where Raichu has to prepare to take on Giovanni. This could be extremely brutal. While I'm faster than his entire team, meaning the Dugtrio cannot knock me out with Fissure, I need a reliable solution for all of his Pokemon, so I'm going to teach Mimic in the place of Thundershock. It's kind of funny, Raichu's move pool is so limited that move has just been dead weight on my set since I got Thunderbolt. So, will Giovanni cause Raichu problems? I expect he will. Dugtrio is first. Against it, I go for Mimic, and I am going to steal Earthquake. It fails a Fissure because I'm faster, and then Body Slam takes it to Orange. Alright, I was expecting more damage there. Using Dig, it deals massive damage because it got a critical hit, and Raichu faints. Alright, one more time. Giovanni uses a Guard Spec, allowing me to Mimic Earthquake for free. Because the ground type does not resist itself, I can use this move for more damage on the Dugtrio. However, once again it survives. It goes for Earthquake, which will deal the same amount as Dig, and without a critical hit, Raichu survives on orange health. Persian's next. I go for Thunderbolt, doing more than half. It uses Screech, lowering my defense. Essentially anything Giovanni hits me with now will be a one-shot. But I have super effective damage against both the Nidos. Earthquake does not do enough to knock the Nidoqueen out. It hits with Earthquake, and that's that. If I used my 11 rare candies right now, it would take Raichu up to level 61. That would mean by the time I reach the champion, I would be roughly level 66 or 67, and I just don't think that is going to be enough. To play conservatively, I decide to fight trainers to gain more experience before facing Giovanni again. Coming back at level 55, Earthquake can now one-shot the Dugtrio. He uses a Guard Spec on the Persian, so it does nothing before going down, and then on the Nidoqueen, I still don't have enough to knock it out. But he Guard Specs, so that's good. I move on to the Nidoking, I can't finish it off, and Earthquake takes Raichu to red health. I think I have to crit the Rhydon if I want to win now. I don't, Earthquake does half, and Rhydon finishes Raichu off. It actually got a crit there, which is quite rare because Rhydon is slow. I attempted again, this time with a completely different strategy. With my rules, I have one exception to evasion boosting moves. I can use Double Team in this fight, so I set it up from the Persian, go to +6, and then I'm going to have to sweep Giovanni's team using Body Slam. It 2-hits the Nidoqueen, and then it's going to 2-hit the Nidoking as well, but it hits Earthquake through my evasion boosts and Raichu goes down. I tried again with the same strategy, and once again Nidoking hits Earthquake, finishing Raichu off. That is so frustrating, because when you're setting up with Double Team, it takes a bunch of time, and then if you lose later into the fight, so much real time gets wasted. Okay, so I'm going to use all of my rare candies now to boost Raichu up to level 66 and try again. Now, of course, Body Slam can one-hit the Dugtrio. Then, on the Persian, I Mimic Double Team, and I'm going to set up and sweep his team. At this much higher level, I can one-hit the Nidoqueen, as well as the Nidoking with Body Slam, but the Rhydon is going to be a different story. I really hope it doesn't get another critical hit with Earthquake. Body Slam does about a third because of my badge boosts. After my second hit, Giovanni uses a Guard Spec, and with that, Raichu has cleared the final gym. Before the league, I have to face the rival, but in comparison with Giovanni, he is much simpler. I can mimic Slash from the Sand Slash because it does not know Earthquake yet. This normal type move will always crit if you have more than 64 base speed, and by doing that it has enough damage to one-shot the Execute. Thunderbolt crits the Ninetales, obviously it one-hits the Cloyster, Slash one-hits the Kadabra, and I move on to the Jolteon, but with guaranteed crits I have enough damage to take it out. Okay, so I've arrived at Victory Road and my Raichu is level 67. There is one more rare candy in here, and then I am going to do some optional training to go up to level 69. I really want to ensure that I'm not going to get stuck at the champion. It really is the worst feeling in these runs when you make it to the final trainer and then he defeats you like 20 times in a row. I think I have slowly over time accumulated a lot of bad experiences from Pokemon like Coughing and Voltorb. Maybe in some cases I play overly safe. That is definitely something I'm working on reducing now. To ensure that I have everything I need, I go back to Celadon City and buy the TM for Reflect. This can help minimize the damage from Sand Slash, and in Generation 1, it does not expire. Once you set it up, it is there until you switch your Pokemon out. And because this is a solo challenge, I'm never going to do that. Okay, so now Raichu's ready for the league. Let's see how this goes. Lorelei is up first. This is going to be a sweep. Thunderbolt one-shots the Dugong, the Cloyster, the Slowbro. Then on the Jinx I use Body Slam, but it's also a one-hit, and so is the Lapras, so that was a clean sweep. Next is this guy. Kind of annoying that he has some Onix, but I can just mimic Dig and have super effective damage against them anyways. His fighting types have such trash special that I can just one-hit both of them with Thunderbolt, and then the Machamp does survive, but he just uses an X Defend. That brings us to Agatha, usually one of the most intimidating trainers in the game. Thunderbolt does more than half to her Gengar though. I mimic and set up Substitute after that. By the way, even if you're confused when you establish the Substitute, you cannot deal damage to yourself in confusion if you have a Substitute in play. The game actually erroneously applies the damage you would deal to yourself to the opponent's Substitute if they have one, and if they don't, the damage just goes nowhere. Using this strategy, I can completely block out confusion and poison tactics, plus I can survive any of her powerful hits when she lands them. The only two ways that I can really be messed up is if the Arbok goes for Glare, but Thunderbolt gets the one hit, so that's not a problem. The last way I could be messed up is the Gengar using Hypnosis, but it chooses Dream Eater when I'm not asleep, and I knock it out. The experience from this battle brings Raichu up to level 71. Alright, I was hoping for 73 for the champion, which would be over a damage rounding threshold, but it looks like I'm just barely not going to get there. As a result, I use my one rare candy now before Lance, and then I jump into the fight. This one should be easy. The only possible way for me to lose would be the second Dragonair freezing me. It uses Ice Beam, but it doesn't get the freeze. Now after mimicking my own ice move, I can easily sweep his final 3 Pokemon, and that's that. We are now ready for what is likely going to be the most difficult battle for Raichu. I've hyped this one up a lot. Let's get into it. The first strategy I'm trying is to mimic Earthquake and use Reflect to minimize damage. With the screen on my side, Sandslash's Earthquake does what looks like a third. I think it's going to take 4 hits to knock me out. I can mimic Earthquake and then use this move to hopefully two-shot, but unfortunately Raichu just doesn't have quite enough damage. As a result, I take a loss. Okay, different strategy. I'm not going to use Mimic. Instead, I can use Reflect and then Body Slam to hopefully 3-shot the Sandslash. In this case, I get a lucky critical hit doing more than half. Sandslash takes me to orange health with Earthquake, and I knock it out. Alright, that's very encouraging. Against Alakazam, it just barely survives my Body Slam, but goes for a Recover, so I take it down for free. With Reflect on my side, Executor's physical moves won't deal very much, so I can heal up with Rest, and then knock it out using Body Slam, aided by 2 critical hits. Cloyster, of course, is a one-shot with Thunderbolt. I continue using this move against the Ninetales. It does confuse Raichu, as well as using Quick Attack. I hit myself, it gets another Quick Attack, and then I knock it out. Okay, I was really hoping that Confusion wouldn't mess me up against the Jolteon. Luckily, I move through it, hit Body Slam, and I get a critical hit knocking it out. I am so surprised it only took 2 battles to defeat the champion. Raichu clocks in with a first playthrough time of 1 hour 12 minutes and 23 seconds, with 8 resets at level 73. This is a game time of 4 hours and 30 minutes. Okay everyone, prepare yourself because the visuals are going to change very subtly. I have been hard at work while producing all these videos, also writing code and doing some visual updates for my overlay. I have for a long time had a vision of what I want this overlay to eventually look like, and despite all the progress I have made on it over the last year and a half, I have still yet to reach that final vision. The next playthrough with Raichu that we're going to watch was recorded using a test version of the software that has a whole bunch of the internals reworked. At this time, I'm not going to give away what any of the new features are going to be. Just know that starting sometime in 2024, things are going to get a lot better, especially when it comes to streams. Okay, so now let's talk about what I was able to figure out using Raichu. The early game is sadly largely unchanged. I don't really think there is a better way to beat Brock. I tested the fight with him at level 15 to see if it was possible, and unfortunately it's just far too unlikely for my standards. The Geodude and Onix have the possibility of doing no damage to every turn, so there is a scenario where Raichu can sneak through at a very low level. That being said, with the time constraint of doing 3 additional runs after my first one, I did not think that I would get by Brock without using level 18. Now, following the release of my Kadabra video, Red Ryosi took it upon himself to really optimize the Brock split. He was able to get it consistently around 15 minutes in comparison with my roughly 17-minute and 20-second split. One of the strategies he found was doing blackout training on the Metapod trainer in Viridian Forest. Because of that, I investigated perhaps using blackout training with Raichu, but I don't think that it works. By the time Raichu has depleted all 30 uses of Thundershock, it's going to be a high enough level to one-shot all of the bug catcher's Pokemon anyways. And you can't really do blackout training against the junior trainer because it requires you to use all the uses of Growl and Thunder Wave prior to attempting the fight. Because of all of these factors, it really feels like Raichu is just stuck with a slow Brock split. In this run, I'm able to defeat the Onix and clock in with a time of 17 minutes and 46 seconds. To save time in Mount Moon, I fight no optional trainers. The next one I'm going to battle is on Route 25, and it is this guy with a team of 4 Pokemon and 3 Geodudes. I realized that by using the Elixir, I'm going to have more than enough Mega Punches to get through this fight, and then I can pick up Seismic Toss. I'm going to use this move inside of Rock Tunnel to defeat the self-destructing hiker so that I don't have to teach Rest. With my current moveset, it seems that I could just teach Rest in the place of Thundershock, but that is short-sighted. I need that slot for something later on that I want to keep until the very end of the game. On Route 8, actually, I don't know, is this Route 8? I never know which route this is. I always have to look it up every time I talk about it. Yes, it is in fact Route 8. Here, I'm going to fight 2 optional trainers. First the Super Nerd with the Grimer line, and then the Gambler with the Poliwag line. This is the start of the extensive training Raichu is going to do throughout the mid-game. The next optional battles are on Cycling Road. I fight the guy with 4 Grimer, then the guy with Wheezing, Coughing, and Wheezing. The trainers you can see me fighting here are standard fare if I really want a lot of levels. I fight a total of 5 on this route. In Erica's gym, of course, I face the Cool Trainer. By the way, against Erica, there is a chance for Raichu to lose if the Weepinbell uses Sleep Powder and I get unlucky, and that is what happens here. In Sylph, I fight a total of 11 trainers to get Raichu just past level 43. This level is fairly reliable against the rival, provided he doesn't get a Sand attack in. Things actually get kind of close here. I'm on low health for the second portion of the fight, but it still all works out for me. Seismic Toss speeds up the fight against Giovanni. I do fight the 2 Psychics in Sabrina's gym, and then I get luckier against her this time. In Koga's gym, I fight the 2 mandatory trainers, as well as the 2 optional tamers for additional experience. I completely crush Koga using Thunderbolt, and then, on my way to Cinnabar Island, I'm going to fight 1 Fisher. It's this guy with 3 Seeking. He has fantastic experience, by the way. I think he is going to be one of the most common trainers for me to fight. One interesting fact to remember about his team is that while he has 4 water types, they only have flying and normal type moves. Against Blaine, I have a 42% chance to 2-hit the Ninetales, a guarantee on the Rapidash with a 1-hit if I crit, and then a 3-hit on the Arcanine, but only a 35% chance of it. I think this is the least consistent battle in the run to this point, with the exception of Brock. As a result, my Raichu does have 1 reset here. In Viridian City Gym, the 2 mandatory trainers take Raichu up to level 51. With the advantage of rooting software, I now know that my level is going to be exactly correct if I use my rare candies here. First, I teach Reflect in the place of Seismic Toss. This is why I could not have Rest earlier. I need it for the champion, and I have to have these 4 moves right here. I'm going to use all my rare candies to go up to level 62, and then it's time to face Giovanni. It's possible to lose here if the Dugtrio just attacks too much or if it gets a critical hit, which is what happens right away, so that is 3 resets total for this run. The strategy though is fairly simple: set up Reflect, mimic Earthquake, knock the Dugtrio out. By the way, it's an 86% chance, so it's very likely. In most cases, my Raichu will get through the first 2 Pokemon with green health. It then has ranges to one-hit the following Nidos, 57% and 98%. Each of their earthquakes will do around 25% damage, and I expect to only be hit by one. In this case, neither of them attack, so I move on to the Rhydon. I have to two-shot using Earthquake, but it's only going to deal somewhere between 40 and 50% damage. Because of that, I expect to be able to survive its hit if it does attack, but sometimes it just won't, which is what happens here because of a guard spec. Again, Giovanni is endorsed by guard spec as a product, so he had to use that. My strategy against him is both faster and I feel more reliable than using double team at a lower level. It does have one consequence, which is I have to do some optional training in Victory Road at a higher level. But I don't actually need level 72 or 73 to defeat the champion. After a total of 7 battles in Victory Road, my Raichu is level 66. Starting the league at this level makes all of the trainers here very easy. This experience is planned out so that once I defeat Lance, my Raichu will be exactly level 69. Nice, the perfect level, because then I can use my final rare candy to go up to level 70 before facing the champion. Okay, so let's talk through this fight. If I'm a lower level, the Sandslash will 3-hit with Earthquake even after I use a Reflect. The only way to win not using a Reflect would be a lot of luck, like paralyzing the Sandslash, forcing it not to move, or getting a critical hit. With level 70, I have a guaranteed 3-hit against the Sandslash. There's a bunch of upside with paralysis and potentially critical hits, and my Raichu is going to survive, although it does on 4 hit points. The luck that I require is then against the Alakazam. I need to knock it out. There's a 61% chance of that happening. In this case it doesn't, but Alakazam can be useless. For example, it can use Recover, which is what happens here, or it could miss with Kinesis. Once I have cleared the rival's first 2 Pokemon, Raichu has essentially won. I rest up on the Executor, and from there I can just sweep through his team. So I clock in with a final result of 1 hour, 3 minutes, and 3 seconds, with 3 resets at level 71. This is a game time of 4 hours and 5 minutes. The runs that I've been doing this fall have really taught me something, and that is the fact that I need to sometimes hold myself to less high of a standard of perfection. It can get really stressful doing these runs and wanting always to have the perfect strategy, and then you look back like a year later and you're like, actually I had no idea what I was doing, I can make Raichu go 10 minutes faster. I don't think that that's going to be the case, at least I hope that's not the case. What I'm really trying to say is that I have to make peace with the fact that this is Raichu's final time for now, but it's not always going to be its final time. I'm sure I'll revisit this one in the future and try to get it under an hour. I think that that's definitely possible if you don't have any resets, and I think that that is really possible if the Brock split cooperates. At the very beginning of the video, I said that I thought about pairing Raichu with Persian and Primeape. I am hoping that you now understand why I didn't end up making that choice. As a Pokemon, Raichu is in a completely different tier. Once again, we have another electric type result, which definitely underwhelms. With a time over an hour, Raichu is going to be fitting into the D tier. Its results are slower than Jolteon, Drowsy, and Wigglytuff. Notably, it got the same finish time as my final run with Crobat, and it is a little bit faster than Chansey. So today it gets itself the 5th spot in this tier. As a Pokemon that evolves from another Pokemon, it is currently the 3rd worst, with only Pidgeot and Golbat having worse results. But don't worry, there is one other final stage Pokemon with a prior stage evolution that just might be worse than Raichu. And next week I'm going to do a playthrough with it, so stay tuned. Thank you so much if you support me on Patreon or through YouTube memberships, it really means the world to me. We are deep into daily December now, and I think it is time for a season finale. So tomorrow, the last video in Pokemon Crystal of the entire year, we are going to do Reiko vs Entei vs Suicune. I am really excited for that one, and since you're incredible, I'm sure I will see you there tomorrow. The video isn't over yet, we have to go through the Oak footage. I'm going to mention here a couple of caveats for this one. First of all, I'm using the overlay and save file from my first run, but I am displaying my best time and lowest resets. There's a technical reason why I had to do this, but I'm not going to go into it now. Let's talk about the fight. Overall, Raichu is very good here, except against the Venusaur. The problem there is that Razor Leaf does too much damage, it can put me to sleep, and it can also use Solar Beam. I toyed around with the idea of using Hypnosis to put it to sleep, but in the end I was able to make it by without the sleep strategy. Last is Gyarados, and of course, Thunderbolt 1 hits, so that's it for Raichu. If you made it this far, you're incredible, thank you so much for watching, I'll see you in tomorrow's video.